Alright, welcome to Lesson 3.3, Solving Systems of Inequalities by Graphing. Update your table of contents and your title page. Alright, we are talking about systems of inequalities. Basically, it has a greater than or less than symbol rather than an equal sign. And so there's two steps to it. You just graph it, and then you're going to have to shade. So copy down the highlighted information. And then you can read through what the empty set is. We've experienced that before. Okay, example 1. Solve this system of inequalities by graphing. So we're going to solve this by, first of all, graphing it as if it was an equal sign. So we're going to look at this top equation, and we'll start with our y-intercept, which is the -3. So on your y-axis, go ahead and draw an x-y axis, put a dot at -3, and then our slope is 2, which as a fraction is 2 over 1. So you go up 2 over 1. So make all of these points. Then, just like we did back in chapter 2, we need to decide if it's solid or dotted. Since there's a line underneath, it will be a solid line. And then we have to decide which way we want to shade. So it's a greater than symbol, so we will need to shade above that line. So I'm going to shade this equation in yellow. Okay, then we're ready to graph the second equation. So the second equation, our y-intercept is at 2. So put a dot at 2. And from there we're going to go our slope, which is -1, so down 1 over 1. And then as we put all these points in, we need to decide if it is solid or dotted. Since there is no line underneath it, it's going to be a dotted line. And then we have to shade above or below. And so we are going to need to shade below. And now the solution to this inequality is going to be where the two colors overlapped and where they turn green up here. So this is my solution area. And what that means is any point in that green area is considered a solution to the equations or inequalities that were given to us. Okay, so let's look at example 2. So let's try this one again. And we're going to start with the top equation. Our y-intercept is at 1. And our slope is -3/4, so down 3 over 4. Okay, we look at it and it has a line underneath it, so it is a solid line. And then we decide if we shade above or below it. Since it's greater than, we're going to go above. Okay, then let's do our second equation. Let's start at -2, that's our y-intercept. And our slope again is -3/4. Again, we have a solid line since there's a less than or equal to. And since it's less than, we're going to shade below. Okay, so the solution is where they overlap. And in this case, they do not overlap at all. So we say the solution is the empty set, no solution, they never cross. Okay, let's take a look at a real-world example. So this example says that our cholesterol levels need to be below 200 and triglyceride levels need to be below 150. So write and represent a graph and graph a system of inequalities that represent the range of cholesterol levels and triglyceride levels for patients. Okay, so we're going to have to figure out some sort of scale. Maybe 50 would be a good number to go by. And I'll actually go by 25s and just label every 50. And then we need to decide, are we going to call cholesterol X or triglycerides X? Let's just put cholesterol on our x-axis, triglycerides on our y-axis. Now we need the cholesterol to be below 200. Now it doesn't say less than or equal to, it doesn't indicate any way that it should be equal to it, so we need a dotted line at 200. And we need to shade less than that. And then our triglycerides need to be below 150. So we need a dotted line for our triglycerides at 150. And again, we're going to shade below. All right, so our solution is the green area. But since this is a real world situation, we have to take into account the fact that you can't really have negative cholesterol. So our solution area is only the positive section. So that section, and that section are not included in our solution area. And then our last example for the day is when we have more than one. Oh, I'm sorry, switch pages on us. So what we're going to do is we're going to graph each of these separately, and then we'll see where the areas intersect. All right, and I decided to change the color on one of those. So let's start with the yellow one. 2x minus y is greater than or equal to -1. This is not in our slope-intercept form, so we're going to need to change it by subtracting 2x and then dividing everything by -1. Remember, when you divide by a negative, you must reverse the symbol. Okay, now it is ready to graph. So we start at 1, and then our slope is 2 over 1. And we have to decide if it's solid or dotted. And it's got the equal part to it, and so it's a solid line. And it's less than, so we need to shade below. Okay, so we've got that first equation done, and we're ready to move on to the second equation. Again, this one is not ready to graph, so we need to get it ready by subtracting x off of both sides. And now we're ready to graph it, so you start at 4, and it has a negative slope. And it is a solid line. And now it is a less than symbol, so we need to shade below it. All right, and then we go on to our last equation. And again, we need to get this into y-intercept form or slope-intercept form. When you divide, you're going to have to divide every term, but we're dividing by positive, so we don't need to reverse it. And there really is a 1 in front of that x, so that's why I put 1/4 x. So this one, we start at 1, And our slope is down 1 over 4. And then it is a solid line. And greater than, so we need a shade above. And then our solution area is this little section in here where they all overlapped. And now the question did ask specifically, find the coordinates of the vertices of the figure formed by this. And so we have this point, and that point. So we need to list out those vertices. So that point would be 4, 0. The top one would be 1, 3. And the leftmost one would be 0, 1. Those would be the coordinates formed by our vertices. And that is end of lesson 3.3. So make sure that you write down your questions and summaries. And let me know if you have any questions in class.